Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Sunday, January 19th, 2024 in the space and time continuum. Very volatile time. A lot is going on. I said we would be in for a lot of surprises. There is a lot happening. Right down to the inaugural is a surprise. It's going indoors into a place that fits like less than 200 people if you fill it to the brim in the rotunda of the Capitol. I don't know. Is it too cold for little Donnie? Are you too cold? Do you need to come in? Why don't you come in? You're too cold. It's too cold. Or is it because he knows that he can't even fill the rotunda with 200 people? So how embarrassed would he be if the whole National Mall has less than 200 people in it? I don't know. A lot of people are mad. Maggots are mad. They paid. I saw some story about some people paid $5,000 to get there. I mean, it's expensive to go to Washington, D.C. for the inaugural, I'm sure. You got to get a flight. You got to get a hotel. The hotels are probably super expensive. I also heard that hotels aren't really full this inaugural. I don't know. Yesterday, which would be January 18th, Saturday, in the space and time continuum, thousands of people, many, many thousands of people apparently showed up in Washington, D.C. against Trump for the People's March. Apparently thousands of people all around the world, many, many marches. Huge one in Scotland. Really big one, I guess. Germany, France, a bunch of places. The world hates Donald Trump. Sorry, Don. So people speculate maybe it was a security concern. I don't know. That makes sense. Because the world hates Donald Trump. I don't know. There's a lot of security in D.C., especially on Inauguration Day. So I don't know. But we'll probably never know what the exact reason is. And I don't know. Trump did say on his Truth Social BS platform that it was too cold and he didn't want his people to suffer. And I'm thinking, I don't think he's got the power to change the inaugural that vastly. It's in plans for weeks or months. I don't know, maybe over a year for some, to get the infrastructure set up and all the security and everything. I don't think he can just say, should I use his voice? I don't know. Doug says I should. I don't know if he's just saying, it's too cold. I don't want to be in the cold. It's too cold. So I'm going to just I'm just going to do it indoors. Okay. If it's okay with you guys, I'm just going to do it indoors. Yeah. He doesn't sound like that anymore. And I haven't done his voice for so long that wasn't that good. Anyway, I don't know if he has any say in it. But I do know that when I got up this morning, it was negative 11 degrees. I'm speaking at you from Minnesota. When they say it's going to be 25 degrees on a winter day in Minnesota, we consider that warm. That's a nice winter day. It was colder when John F. Kennedy was sworn in on his inauguration day. I think it was 4 degrees colder, like 21 degrees. And he didn't even wear an overcoat. So the cold and Donald Trump making the decision, I don't think so. By the way, it is still -4. And by that, I mean 4 below zero here in Minnesota. And we don't cancel things. My daughter went skating the other day. It was a little warmer that day, but, we don't cancel stuff here in Minnesota. And again, it has been colder at many inaugurations. That's enough on that, right? I don't know where to start here. Okay, I'll play you this clip. I want to talk a little bit about, because there's just, so maybe when we come back from the break, we'll talk about this bulletin just in. Because all week long, stuff has been happening that I bet you have not heard about. I saw my mom on Friday. I was with her for a while, and she hadn't heard most of this stuff. It's because the mainstream media, it's like we're on a news blackout, and it's weird. Talked about that a little last week, but okay, we'll do that when we come back from the break. Right now, I had a whole bunch of notes here that was going to take up the whole show, I thought, and then news started pouring in more. You know, this was like by Wednesday, I had this much stuff, and then stuff just started happening. So I have a whole now I have this page of stuff that's even more. That's just the news items that have occurred day by day this week. Just this week, I spoke at you last Sunday, and again, that seems like weeks ago. Some of the stuff at the top of this list here seemed like longer than a week ago, and it just goes back to like Tuesday. So I want to talk about income inequality. Okay, I will let this guy, he knows a lot more about it than I do. Scott Galloway, here's what he has to say about it.
Once you get above a certain level of wealth, you get no incremental happiness. So why on earth would you not go back to a tax policy of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where say above, pick a big number, 10 million, you actually pay more than 10%, maybe more than 20%, maybe more than 50%, because the difference between 30,000 a year for a household and 50,000 is enormous to the well-being of that household. Low-income kids in low-income households have higher resting blood pressure, but the difference between making 10 million a year and 15 million a year offers you no happiness. But these individuals have weaponized government, and we risk revolution, whether it's CEOs being murdered in the street, whether it's a Me Too movement that had righteous components of it, or Black Lives Matter. What are these movements? They are targeting the wealthy. We are in the midst of a series of small revolutions to correct income inequality. And the reason we put an insurrectionist and a rapist in office is because for the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. Why? Because the majority of households are having the oxygen sucked out of the room, such that a small number of individuals and a small number of companies can be worth more than nation states. Income inequality is out of control. Our tax policy has gone full oligarch.
The going full oligarch began under Ronald Reagan in his first tax cuts. That, of course, caused a recession. Like all Republicans, it's now a prerequisite that you must cause a recession if you want to be president. And then the next Democratic president has to clean it up. I mean, lower income families, their children have higher blood pressure. Back when this country was thriving and we had a strong middle class, I was alive for part of that. My dad had a job, and we went on vacation every year. People we knew could go to college. We owned a house and a station wagon on my dad's one paycheck. And he just had a very lower middle class kind of income. But it was still middle class. There's no such thing as lower middle class. There's no middle class, kind of almost doesn't exist. I would probably be considered middle class now, but I make a lot of money now with my business. There was a time when I lived at poverty level. Most of my life, I lived poor and in debt and unable to make any kind of choice about anything. Going out to eat, And now I feel like I make a lot of money. There was no in between. I mean, I would be fine if I made a lot less money than I make now. And I'm not trying to brag or anything like that. But I am fine with paying higher taxes. And another thing, when you hear about these high taxes, 50% tax on the rich people, they're not paying 50% on all of their money. You have a new category when it starts, like he said, at 5 million, and then you get taxed at 40%, and then 10 million you get taxed at 50%. Anything below that 5 million, you're not taxed 40%. You're taxed kind of like what everybody's taxed. So it's fair. It is fair. And if you're making that much more money, we have seen Elon Musk and these people, they can't even figure out what to do with their lives. Do they look happy? Like he said, money doesn't buy happiness. You know, once you get to a certain, I mean, if I made all of a sudden $1 million more than I make now, I would just feel like, okay, what do I do with that? I mean, how much do you need? The times are changing rapidly, and he's talking about mini revolutions. And when you think about it, we have already begun to see that. The Securities and Exchange Commission sued Elon Musk in federal court over an alleged securities violation in D.C. So he's got so much money. Here's also in the Jack Smith report, that's one of the news items. It got released on Monday night, the J6 part of it. And in that report, he says, the reason this has been moving so slow, don't blame it all on Merrick Garland. Even before he appointed me, Merrick Garland was trying to get information on this. And then when I came on, we were trying to get information from Elon Musk on Donald Trump from his Twitter. Because Elon Musk had just bought, do you notice how Elon Musk bought Twitter almost the exact same time that Jack Smith was appointed special counsel? He was subpoenaed and he just refused. He's been fined, but he doesn't care. At some point, you can't punish these people. They can do whatever they want. They break the law all the time. He was obstructing justice. More on Elon Musk after the break when we're talking about the news. And then Trump can just throw money at it and delay. I couldn't do that. You couldn't do that. What else do we got here? Oh, yes. Okay. Biden passed an executive order against election interference. Why would he do that? Remember how last week we talked about all these reports are going to come out about election interference? Because many countries have reported election interference. By Elon Musk, by the way. What about the United States? G7. Trump might not be able to go to the G7 because he's an indicted criminal. And Biden surprised us a lot this week, too. A lot of executive orders, shortening sentences or pardoning nonviolent criminals. Thank you so much for being here on a satellite view. We'll be right back. Satellite view, Todd Mikkelson speaking at you. Yeah, let's get into all of these many things that happened. I'm sure I'll probably end up going overtime again. So one of the first things that happened this week, it was on Monday. Mark Rutte, I think is how you say his name. He is the head of NATO, and he met with the European Parliament, and he said a few things. One thing he said, by the way, Monday night also, Jack Smith's report came out. Donnie wasn't too happy about that. Well, let's go back to Mark Rutte, NATO. Mark Rutte announced the launch of NATO's new military activity called Baltic Sentry. under the Supreme Allied Commander General Chris Cavoli. That sounds like World War II kind of talk. Supreme Allied Commander. Military activity in the Baltic. That was on Monday. Stick around and you'll hear what happened over the Baltic Sea on, I think, Friday or Thursday. Also, Mark Rutte, he said when he referred to Trump, he only said Trump. He didn't say President-elect or President Trump or anything like that. He just said Trump. And when he referred to the incoming administration, he just called it the new administration. He did not call it the Trump administration. He continually said or voiced his confidence in the USA remaining a partner in NATO. He mentioned investigation to show election interference in many of our countries. And then, of course, we heard last week that Macron in France announced that there was election interference in France by Elon Musk. Germany has said the same. The UK has said the same. Canada, I talked about it last week, how they have a report coming out. Also, this happened maybe on Tuesday. This just in, NATO jets moved on Poland because Russia jets invaded their airspace. Norwegian jets were scrambled over Poland. NATO jets. Because Russia flew into Poland's airspace. Russia's seems like they want NATO to strike. And it seems like Mark Rutte is getting NATO ready to strike. On Wednesday, Donald Tusk, the Polish prime minister, he announces that Polish intelligence has uncovered a plot by Russia to put devices on airplanes all over the world. We're talking like bombs. This is international terrorism. This is global terrorism. Russia is doing or wanting to do. In November, there were a couple fires in airports in, I think, the UK and Germany, and it had something to do, it's confusing. But this happened in November. Did you hear about it? They think it was dry run test runs for, sabotaging airplanes that were flying to the United States and Canada. A test run for this international terrorism. Also on Wednesday, NATO, again, had a big meeting, and I saw a little bit of video footage from it. Huge room with at least 150 probably people in uniform. And they were from all over, the NATO countries. And the guy who was putting it on, Mark Rutte, I didn't see him in this video. I don't think he was at this. But the guy who was heading it up also had a uniform on. And he said, okay, that concludes this part of our meeting. Now, the media, will you please step out of the room for us to have a special meeting that the media was not allowed to be in on? When's the last time you've heard any news about NATO? On Wednesday, Jake Sullivan is special advisor to the Biden administration, to President Biden. He was having his supposed final update, and he was behind a podium. And at the end, he said, hopefully this will be the last time you see me at this podium, unless something very unusual happens in the next few days. And from what we've been seeing, that's very possible. He said something to that effect. Now, I saw video of that. I guess I could have played that video for you, but keep in mind that you can go look this stuff up. Jake Sullivan, special advisor to Biden. Why did he say that? Kamala was going to this week, the beginning of this week. It seems like it was 2 weeks ago, but at the beginning of this week, she had plans to fly all around the world, all over the globe, to meet with a bunch of world leaders. Why? Aren't you done? She did have those meetings over the phone. She canceled her trip because of the California fires. Which, by the way, the moment the California fires started, did anyone talk about drones anymore? All the maggots were so angry about the drones. They didn't understand why they were angry or anything about the drones, but they suddenly stopped talking about the drones. Just distraction after distraction. Luckily, not luckily, but fortunately, and still that's not the right word to use, but the fires are being contained. The wind died down, I believe, starting on Thursday, and they're able to make a lot of headway on the fires in California. I heard something like 250,000 people are able to go back to hopefully their homes or, sadly, the rubble that used to be their homes. I heard one of the fires was 87%. I heard one of them was 97% contained. So hopefully that nightmare will end sometime soon. I'm not sure what day this happened, but here's Elon again. The House passed a bill, or they put a bill on the floor, calling for sanctions to the International Criminal Court. If the International Criminal Court, you might have heard the term ICC, if they try and indict an American. Why would the ICC be trying to indict an American? For what? Elon, what are you doing in the corner? Trying to hide? And does that say then that House members know something about Elon? And why he might be indicted by the ICC, the International Criminal Court? Coupled up with everything we've been talking about here, right? Friday, this just in. Russian drone crashes in NATO territory. Romania had a Russian drone crash. Why? Why was a Russian drone trying to... What were they trying to do in Romania? That's pretty deep into NATO country. What are they doing? Also, on Friday, the French say a NATO aircraft was targeted by Russian air defense. It's unclear whether or not the Russians took a shot at the aircraft. Over the Baltic Sea, where Mark Rutte just announced the new military activity by NATO. Germany is going to start shooting down drones that are around their military installments. What's going to happen with NATO? Mark Rutte has been angry about a lot of things Russia has been doing. I don't know. What happens if an announcement comes out between now and, say, noon tomorrow that the United States has to go along with the NATO military activities? When we heard that Canada beefing up their military. Now, I think it was because of this NATO activity, but a lot of people were kind of half joking that it was because of Trump threatening to invade Canada, threatening to invade Greenland, because he's such an addled old man. I tell you, if I were president, I would take over that Greenland. I'd tell you, I'd send in those soldier guys like that. Yeah, Grandpa. Okay. Let's get you to bed now. An idiot. A lot going on. Yesterday, now we're up to Saturday, right? After the one day where a Russian drone crashed in NATO territory, and then they might have taken a shot at a NATO jet in the Baltic Sea, which of course is also NATO territory. It was a French NATO airplane. Now we're up to Saturday. Marches against Donald Trump all over the world. Thousands and thousands are reported to have been in D.C. alone. I saw just a couple photographs. It's weird how you can't find information about it that easily. If you go to just like CNN or NBC, they don't have it as a headline on their top page. By the way, yesterday was really cold too, and it didn't stop thousands and thousands of people to march against Donald Trump. It was called the People's March here in the United States. I think in another country, it might have been called the Women's March, again, kind of like we had in 2017. But they're all against Donald Trump. They're in protest about Donald Trump. Now, we've got countries who I think are feeling bad for us and like, oh, the Americans are stupid again. They spilled all over their shirt again. Let's help them out. Luckily. And like I said, a lot of reports are supposedly coming out very soon that sound like they're going to implicate Elon Musk in election interference in many countries. Why would he do many countries and not the United States? Changing tabulations using Starlink. I'm just, I'm not saying that happened. But when you just kind of dig into your intuitive self. Now, today, Trump's rally started about an hour ago as I'm recording this. I did see one photograph somebody posted and it said 10 minutes before the rally is to begin and all of the top rafters are empty. He's having it in a stadium that holds supposedly 20,000 people. And the top rafters are, I saw a photo, it's completely empty. And that's, again, what happened during his campaign as well. So how many people would, going to show up in the mall outdoors? Yeah, we'll never know. Now, we'll never know. Now, really great news. I saw some video footage. I didn't, sometimes if the news is happening right now when I'm recording this, even though you're going to hear it like a day or two later, or maybe even longer after that, I'm not going to be quite up to date because obviously, I need to record and edit. And there's so much news going on all the time that it's going on while I'm recording. So that's not going to make it on. Just before I was recording, I saw some videos and photos of hostages being released out of Gaza. And the ceasefire did begin today. The ceasefire is in effect between Israel and Gaza, and they are releasing hostages. I don't have a lot of detail, and I'm sure that is something that the mainstream media is reporting on. We can be glad about that. How low is the bar when we're like, oh, at least the mainstream media is reporting on hostages being released and there being a ceasefire in a major war? I said weeks ago, there's a lot of surprises coming up. To me, this is all pretty crazy. This is all pretty crazy stuff. Is NATO going to actually make an attack of some sort? What's going to happen with the information and when the information comes out that Elon Musk, it's kind of already out, but when the actual reports come out with proof that Elon Musk interfered in elections in numerous countries, and what if one of those countries ends up being the United States? If you go back a few weeks, you can hear some of the numbers. Why did Donald Trump this summer keep repeating, you don't need to vote, we don't need your vote, we have enough votes? Why did Elon Musk say, if Donald Trump doesn't win, I'm totally effed. How long do you think I will go to prison? He said that in a public interview with Tucker Carlson. Why? Why, Elon? Why? What have you done? There are other things. And we all saw it with our own eyes. It was supposed to be like, wow, this is looking like record turnout. And then, I don't know, millions less votes. We're still in for more surprises. It's going to be a surprising year, a year full of surprises. There are a lot of things shifting and changing. And I think we're learning about a lot of things that are wrong with our systems that we need to fix. I personally think that's the sort of universal reason Trump exists, is to show us how bad things are and can get, and that we need to do some stuff to fix those things. I'm sure I will be talking to you next week, and who knows? Look at all this stuff that happened just this week. Monday seems like, I don't know, at least 2 weeks ago. I keep saying that every week. Thank you so much for listening. We're trying to keep each other sane in this crazy, chaotic era that we are navigating through. you keep me sane just by giving me a reason to wrap my head around things and try and have a discussion with somebody. Even though you look like a camera to me, you take away my loneliness. I'm talking to you. You look like a camera. Anyway, thank you again for listening. Let's all stick together and try and keep each other sane in this kind of insanity going on. Also, by the way, I feel very optimistic about our future. I really do. Some people ask me, how can you do this? How can you look into all this crazy stuff that's scaring the crap out of everybody? When I look into it, it makes me understand better what's going on, and it makes me optimistic. Sometimes bad things need to happen for you to get to the better place. So a lot of bad things have happened, and we're getting to a better place. That's sincerely how I feel. That's sincerely what I think. So again, thank you for listening. Maybe you're watching this on video. We started to film. So if it sounds slightly different, it's because of that. It's just a slightly different approach for me. And then editing is a little different as well. Trying to cover the same kind of stuff. We will do the same. I'll be starting to take notes, I'm sure, the moment I sit down and see any new information within the next hour here. I'll start taking notes on next week's show, I'm sure. So tune in then when I'm speaking back at you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.